When I look back on everything that happened, it's still hard to believe it was real. The betrayal, the double betrayal, was something you'd expect to see in a soap opera, not in your own life. But there I was, standing in the wreckage of a marriage and a sisterhood I had trusted wholeheartedly, blindsided by the people I thought I could count on most. It started quietly, as these things often do, subtle shifts in behavior that I tried to rationalize at first. My husband, Mark, began staying out late, his excuses thin and riddled with inconsistencies. Work deadlines, he said, a quick drink with colleagues after hours. I didn't press him. Maybe I should have. I had always been the trusting type, the kind of wife who believed in giving space and respecting boundaries. But then there were the glances, furtive and fleeting, between Mark and my sister, Olivia. The whispers when they thought I wasn't paying attention, the way their laughter felt a little too familiar, too private, like I wasn't meant to be part of the joke. The realization came crashing down one rainy Thursday night. Mark had left his phone on the kitchen counter while he took a shower, a rarity since he had become unusually protective of it in recent months. A message popped up on the screen. It was from Olivia. The words were casual enough. "See you later, love." Can't wait. But the context was anything but. My heart dropped. I didn't have to dig deeper to understand what was going on. That single message confirmed what I had feared, but refused to acknowledge for weeks. The confrontation was explosive. Mark stumbled over half-baked excuses, claiming I was misinterpreting things, that Olivia was just being friendly. Olivia, true to form, feigned innocence, accusing me of being paranoid and trying to ruin her reputation. But the lies were brittle, snapping under the weight of their guilt. Eventually, Mark admitted it. He and Olivia had been seeing each other for months during which I had cooked their meals, shared my home, trusted them both implicitly. They didn't even try to make it sound like it wasn't intentional. "We didn't mean for this to happen," Olivia said, her tone insincere and hollow. "But we can't help how we feel." They left me shattered, the kind of broken you can't put into words. My marriage was over, my sister had taken what was mine, and all I had to show for it were the pieces of a life that had come apart at the seams. For a while, I didn't know what to do. How do you move forward from something like that? How do you heal when the people who hurt you most carry on as if nothing happened, basking in the love they built out of your pain? I tried. I really did. Therapy, journaling, cutting off contact, every healing method they tell you to try, I tried it. But it wasn't enough. Not when I heard through mutual friends that Mark and Olivia were planning a wedding. A wedding. Less than a year after our divorce had been finalized, it felt like a slap in the face. I wasn't just discarded, I was replaced, and they were celebrating it for the whole world to see. That's when the idea came to me. It wasn't born of malice or revenge, not entirely anyway. It was more about reclaiming my narrative. They had taken everything from me, but I wasn't going to let them write the ending. If they wanted a wedding, I'd give them one, just not the kind they were expecting. I spent weeks planning it. It had to be perfect, not overly dramatic, but just enough to make them rethink their choices. My goal wasn't to destroy their day, but to make sure they understood that actions have consequences, that pain doesn't just disappear when you decide it no longer matters. I enlisted the help of a few close friends who had stood by me through the chaos, people who knew my heart and understood why I needed to do this. The day of the wedding arrived, and I could feel the adrenaline coursing through me. I had carefully planned my surprise, rehearsed every moment in my head like a performer preparing for her grand debut. What happened next would make waves, ripples that would reach every corner of their lives. And as I walked into the venue, dressed in a stunning black gown that seemed to command attention with every step, I knew I was ready to take back control. As I stepped into the venue, the soft hum of classical music and the faint murmur of excited guests washed over me. The air was thick with the scent of fresh flowers and polished wood, and the grand hall was illuminated by an almost ethereal glow. Everything about it was exquisite, just as Olivia and Mark had no doubt intended it to be. The guests were dressed to the nines, chatting and laughing, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing at their impeccably orchestrated celebration. My black gown swept elegantly across the polished floor as I made my entrance. Heads turned, eyes flicked my way, and conversations faltered. It wasn't just the dramatic color of the dress, it was the way I held myself, the air of quiet confidence that followed me. I wasn't there to blend in. I wasn't there to cause chaos. I was there to reclaim something intangible, my voice, my narrative, my power. I didn't have to search for them. They were at the center of it all naturally. Olivia stood by Mark, radiant in a pristine white gown, her smile glittering with satisfaction as she basked in the attention. Mark, ever the picture of charm, leaned in close to her, whispering something that made her laugh. It was a scene of absolute harmony, or so it appeared. I made my way through the room, the sea of guests parting as I passed, a ripple of whispers trailing behind me. Is that? What is she doing here? Oh, this is going to be interesting. I ignored them all, my gaze fixed firmly ahead. My heart was pounding, but my steps were steady. This was my moment, and I wasn't going to let nerves steal it from me. When I reached the couple, they didn't notice me right away. It was Olivia who looked up first, her laughter fading as her eyes locked onto mine. For a split second, her polished composure faltered, and I saw the flicker of panic in her expression. Mark turned next, and his face went pale. The chatter around us dulled to a low hum as the room seemed to hold its collective breath. "Congratulations," I said, my voice calm, even warm as I addressed them. "What a beautiful wedding." "What? What are you doing here?" Olivia stammered, her eyes darting around as though searching for an escape route. Mark opened his mouth, but no words came out. "Oh, I wouldn't miss it for the world," I replied, my tone light and conversational. After all, it's not every day you see two people so deeply committed to their own happiness. There was a pause, a tense, weighted silence that seemed to stretch on forever. And then, before either of them could respond, I reached into my clutch and pulled out a folded envelope. I extended it toward Olivia, who hesitated before taking it, her fingers trembling slightly. "What's this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Open it," I said simply. The room seemed to shrink as all eyes turned to her. Slowly, she unfolded the envelope, pulling out the neatly printed document inside. Her eyes scanned the paper, and as she read, her face shifted from confusion to shock, then to something closer to dread. "It's a gift," I explained, my voice steady and clear. "A wedding present, if you will. It's a list of everything you've ever borrowed from me. Clothes, jewelry, money, trust. Thought it might be nice for you to finally acknowledge the debt." A murmur rippled through the crowd, a mixture of astonished gasps and uncomfortable laughter. Olivia's hands were shaking now, and her face had turned ashen. Mark stepped forward, his expression a mix of anger and humiliation. "This is out of line," he hissed, his voice low enough that only I could hear. "Out of line?" I repeated, raising an eyebrow. "Oh, Mark, you haven't even begun to see what out of line looks like." I turned back to Olivia, meeting her stunned gaze head-on. "You once told me we were inseparable," I said, my voice tinged with an almost wistful sadness. "Sisters, best friends, you said nothing could come between us. And yet, here we are. I hope it was worth it." With that, I stepped back, giving them one last smile before walking away. The crowd parted for me once again, their murmurs growing louder as I made my exit. I didn't look back, but I didn't need to. I knew I had left them, and everyone else in that room, reeling. By the time I reached the parking lot, the adrenaline was coursing through me so intensely that I had to take a moment to steady myself. I leaned against my car, breathing deeply, as the weight of what I had just done began to settle in. I wasn't sure how they would recover from this, and frankly, I didn't care. This wasn't about revenge, not entirely. It was about standing up for myself, about refusing to let their betrayal define me. As I drove away, I felt lighter than I had in months. I had taken back something they had tried to steal from me, my dignity, my strength, my sense of self, and while they were left to deal with the fallout, I was already looking ahead, ready to build a life that was entirely my own,